Welcome to the Friday at 4 podcast series with your host Charles Luttrell and co-host Steve Kent.
Steve, welcome back to Friday at 4, episode 102. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. 102.
Awesome.
We're getting there one at a time.
Yeah, we're rolling. We're rolling along,
Yeah,
man.
it's good
I
stuff.
like this episode today. I think this episode is going to be cool.
Yeah.
So, are you prepared for what happens next? Which is a loaded question. People in businesses often look successful today while being completely unprepared for tomorrow, right?
hmm
So, is a person or family financially prepared for what happens when life doesn't go according to plan? Looking good today, right? Doesn't mean you're prepared for tomorrow. What do you think, buddy?
Correct. And let's just clarify that we're talking about a person's business, not their personal. It's the person's business. Okay.
The
So
busyness.
yeah, um, there's a lot of, and again, I'm in New York City, and there's a lot of businesses that look good from the outside, but are they really good inside?
Yeah.
So one of the things to think, and you mentioned this already, um, you could look like you have a lot of income. So depending on your location, the store could be constantly crowded. You could do a lot of advertising, social media, whatever it may be, and you're driving people or traffic. I'm not a marketing person, but traffic into your location. And that could be awesome. But just because the store is busy doesn't mean you're doing well. And that's exactly what you asked to start this whole conversation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always look at is what's going on behind the scenes that people, the average you and I, don't see, but the business owner does, or at least should see. And I'm
Keyword
saying that
should,
on
right?
purpose.
Right.
Now, some people see it, some people don't, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Excuse me. So there's a whole bunch of things that a business needs to look at on a regular basis to see whether their business really is good, quote, good, or not. So one of the things to think about is, and I'm only just going to pick a couple because there's a whole slew, but um, rent. Now, again, the city you're in, the location you're in plays a lot into it.
Sure
But
does.
I know in the city, I went into a store a couple of weeks ago and I was just talking to the owner, and it's a small location. But because of where it is, the rent is $25,000 a month. Just the
What?
rent. Yeah. But it's in a
Wow.
prime location.
Yeah.
Now, again, going back just a second, you could say prime location, lot of people, even if it's a wealthier area. Think about how much business you must do
Yeah.
just to pay the rent.
Yeah.
A lot of business, and depending on what you're selling and whatnot.
Right.
Another
Yeah.
thing you have to consider as a business owner are salaries. How many people are there? Do you need a full staff morning to close or open to close? Can you have lesser staff during off times and up staff during peak times? Like if you're a restaurant, like dinner, if you're selling something, chocolate, and Valentine's Day is big, Mother's Day is big, so you up staff for that and then you down staff for the rest of the year. So how's your salary? Look at utilities. Again, here in New York, and I'm going to call them out, Con Ed, extremely expensive. And there's people screaming all the time that their rates are going up through the roof and their service is going down. So not a good combination. Then you take a look at all your insurances. Your staff, your your building, your inventory, whatever you have, insurances are expensive. Healthcare is going through the roof. Then take a look at inventory. And people are like, inventory? Yeah. So you're selling, I'm going to come back to you, Chuck, okay? You go in one of the businesses you handle and work with are restaurants, one of many. So just to throw an example out, great hamburger joint. How many hamburgers do you have in the freezer in anticipation of business coming in the front door? So do you have 50 burgers, 100 burgers, 1,000 burgers? Every burger that you have to pay for, most cases, up front. So if you're going to put out $1,000 for hamburger meat and it's sitting in the freezer and the customers don't buy it, it's great that you have 1,000 hamburgers, but your cash is also in that freezer. You can't
Yeah,
use a hamburger to pay a bill. Okay, you need the
that's
cash to
exactly
pay the
right.
bill. So
Right.
all those things tie into I have money coming in the front door. It looks like I'm doing well, but am I? Because I have to pay the expenses.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
another thing that we talked about, if you, so briefly, and we're getting into this, if you only look at the income, are you really doing well? You're not looking at the expense side. You're not looking at the cash flow side.
Yeah.
Um, another thing that I know comes to mind is if you're in a business, you should be aware of income statements, balance sheets, all the stuff that's the numbers of how are you doing. So your balance sheet of your assets and your liabilities. So you have 1,000 hamburgers in the freezer, but you got to pay for them. So your asset is your hamburger meat, but your liabilities you owe.
Yeah.
They have to match.
Yeah.
And if you owe more than what you have, there's a problem there because where do you get the
Serious, bro.
money to pay it?
Yeah.
Another thing to think about, um, again, in match income and expenses. So do you have enough money every day, week, month, quarter, year to pay the rent, the salaries, the utilities, and those other things?
Yeah.
Um, in an ideal world, if you're a business owner and you have the finances to do this, you need to hire a good bookkeeper. You need to have a good accountant or CPA. Now, yes, you can argue that that costs you money. But if you trade off, assuming you have the skill set, if you trade off your time to run the books, you're not helping grow your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a trade off. And again, when I started my business back in 13, I had no income yet because I just opened the doors. So I had to do everything, even though I had no idea how to do that stuff. But it did stop me. That's why I worked so many hours. But at some point,
Right.
too many hours, you burn out. So where's the
Yeah.
trade-off? And I don't know what the answer is. Everybody's different.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um,
That's it's a great start to this podcast. You got my mind thinking as you're saying these things, from my standpoint, really thinking about restaurants and just businesses in general. Think about your Google review, right? You're a
mhm.
4.8, 4.9 on Google, right? But you can still have serious weaknesses, right? Because you don't know. You think you're flying high because I have a great rating. I'm 4.8, 4.9, whatever, doesn't matter, right? And it kind of ties into what the whole umbrella here, I think, me listening to what, we're talking about is the difference between appearance and actual performance, right? Because you can appear to be fantastic. You turn the key, you open the door, you walk in, you flick the lights on. Look at my establishment. Look what I've got. You go in the back, you sit down at your desk. you wait to open up and you can't wait to get started for the day. But if forecasting is off because the economy has changed within the year, you got serious problems, right? So, I mean,
Yep.
those two things right there, really can pull out, a lot of things that might not be what you think they are, or
Right.
they could be what you think they are. It all depends on how you look at it, right? Because if you have blinders on, you're not thinking straight, got your head in the sand, you think, I got a 4.9 rating, I'm great. You're not listening to the outside things. What do you do, right? I mean, you got, again, appearance between appearance and the actual performance, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to what you mentioned before about a restaurant. And again, it could be any business that you work with, but let's just
Sure.
focus for a second on the restaurant. So you walk in, you turn the lights on, everything looks good, and you realize you don't have the income to cover the expenses. Now you start to sit there and say, if I have, if I can't increase income because they haven't called Chuck yet to know how to do that,
Mhm.
now they have to reduce their expenses. Now you may say as a business owner, nobody will notice. But from your experience, Chuck, and I'm sure you can talk to this generally, when a business starts to cut corners, what happens?
Yeah, especially with customer service, right? If you're not hiring quality people, if you're not purchasing quality products,
Mm-hmm.
your customers are going to know. So, just think about if you've been in business for 5 years, you have your regular customers that come, once a week, every other week or so. They know what you sell, they know what your product
Mm-hmm.
is.
Right.
But all of a sudden you come in and, wow, that lettuce doesn't taste like lettuce. That burger doesn't taste like that burger I had just 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to notice.
They're
And
going to know.
you don't want them to take to the streets and take to the reviews. And then you're going to suffer. And again, right?
Yep.
Appearance and actual performance, right? I mean, I think this is a
Yep.
great way to hit this topic of this podcast today because it really just hits home everything you say and everything we talked about right now. It's that difference in appearance and actual performance. Because if I walk in and having the same burger that I've had for 5 years, and now it tastes like I just left McDonald's. Wow, it's gonna be a problem, right?
It could be a problem.
It could be a problem. Yeah,
And one of the things, so you mentioned there's a couple of things here. One is you already mentioned it. People will take to leaving reviews and they may not be the best.
yeah,
So again, that could cause issues. But another thing that could cause a problem to well, a couple of things. One is word of mouth, social media. People
yeah,
could turn around and instead of saying, hey, I've been coming to this restaurant 2 years, never had a problem. This one time it was a little off. So even if you
yeah.
decide you want to post that, that one time offsets 5 years worth of good service, good food,
Yep, absolutely.
you know? And then the
Yeah.
last potential challenge is they leave after that meal and they don't come back.
Oh yeah,
So now you
yeah,
have the bad rating, you lost the customer and who they're going to talk to, and it
yeah.
starts the downward spiral.
Yep. And check this out. You'll love this. A 5-star Google rating, right, doesn't necessarily mean you have a 5-star business, does it? It doesn't, right?
Hmm,
It's just
correct.
Google.
Correct.
That's exactly why I created my Star Performance Index assessment because I'm looking beyond one number. I'm looking
Hmm.
beyond Google, Yelp, Facebook. There's a combination, right? And I think that's
Right.
what's cool about what we do is we don't you know, just look at it from the surface. We really dive deep, and there's so much to that, which we'll get into the second part of this podcast episode because I know right now we're talking about, what are the warning signs, and let's talk about things that are happening. The second part we talk about what's some of the things that we can do. And I think, you know, the Star Performance Index assessment that I've created really, really it opens up some eyes, because like I said, it goes beyond that one number because
Mhm.
that's what people look at.
Yes.
And if you really walk in, you unlock your door, you walk in, you go to the back, you flick the lights on, and you start the day not even thinking about that one number, that could be a huge problem, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, you bought 500 burgers a week or 500 burgers a day, last year this time, but this week, if you only sell 100, now you're in the hole. Like you said, how are you going to pay your employees? How are you going to keep those
Sure.
lights on? How are you going to keep that door unlocked when you don't have the key to lock it back, right? Because your landlord said, "Where's my rent?"
Yep. Yep. If you are a business and an investor wanted to come in and invest or even buy your business, they're not just going to look at income. They're going to look at income. They're going to look at expenses. They're going to look at how long you've been there. What's your staff look like? Do you have processes and procedures? What are your ratings and reviews? What's your market share? There's a whole slew of things. So if an investor has that approach, doesn't it kind of sort of make sense that you should look at that same approach in your own business? There's a guy I know, um, that somewhat fairly well, who's been around a long time, bought and sold dozens of businesses, made a fortune, and he's well deserved because the guy's like brilliant. And he always says, when you start a business, start with figuring out how you're going to exit the business. That should be your first thing in. You open the doors. How do I sell the business? What do I need to put into place? People,
Something to think about.
processes, products, the works. And if you can get it to that point, you can sell it for a lot more money, potentially sell it for a lot more money than you paid for it. But think of the exit and work backwards.
Yep. I saw a Facebook post yesterday about a local restaurant here from up the street from me. And
Mhm.
I thought it was okay. I went in one time, I made a visit. I talked to some people I thought were the business owners. And I think this was prior to me creating the Star Performance Index assessment. I was
Mhm.
just going straight off of maybe mystery shopping. I can't be sure, but I'm going to dig through my notes because I know I keep a folder on every
Mhm.
business I contact. But
Yeah.
they're now closed. They closed a couple of days
Mhm.
ago.
Wow.
And there were people that were copying and pasting reviews, how bad they were. And even a good friend of mine had posted a comment about, I made a visit there and it was just subpar, really wasn't
Mhm.
that great anyway. He was
Wow.
shocked that they were even open as long as they were, which, yeah. So even
Wow.
you're like, wow, right? Yeah. It blew me away too, because I know
Mm.
that restaurants switched hands a couple of times. I even think it switched names at once, and they've had their share of some downfalls
Mhm.
in the past. I was shocked too. I was like, wow, because they were going to be
Mm.
on my radar for another business to, go and assess, and really help them out.
Mm.
We'll see what the future holds for that
Yeah.
location, if they open
Oh,
up
yeah.
again or if they tear it down or if they, whatever
Wow.
they're going to do. I'm excited to
Mm.
see, but I want to throw that out there, is that
Yeah.
just as soon as yesterday,
Wow.
there another one bites the dust, and it's amazing, right? If you
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing, don't know what's going on in your business.
Well, and
And
it's
like
the
I said, I
economy.
don't want to make any assumptions, right? Because I don't know what their problem was.
Mm.
But according to what I'm seeing, they didn't like it anyway. So maybe they
Mm.
weren't making enough money to keep the lights on, right? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Couldn't keep the rent
Well,
paid.
we'll
I don't know,
never
but
know.
I'll find out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll find out.
Yeah. We'll never know.
Yeah,
But also, let me just come back for just a second.
yeah,
When a business owner doesn't look at the numbers, and again, whether they do it themselves or they have like a bookkeeper, accountant, when you don't look at the numbers, there could be issues that are not coming to the surface. And if you don't know there's an issue, how do you address it? And you hope it's not too late.
right.
So, a couple of things come to mind when there's issues. Can you keep paying your staff their salary? Can you keep paying the staff the benefits that they want, the medical and the dental and those things? Can you give raises? Can you give bonuses? Can you keep your staff because there is a cost to hire and train. And if you have a staff of however big who are trained and doing their job, now you can't afford them and they go away. How do you, if you can replace them? Now you're back to the hiring cost, the training cost, that stuff. If you don't replace them, you're putting a burden on the existing staff. So
Yeah.
there's like a snowball effect. So how do you handle that? That's why it's so important to look at things on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? That you mentioned that keeping staff, right? It costs between $4,000 to $5,000 on average to replace a person in a business.
I've
That's a
heard it's
known.
more. I've heard it's
Yeah.
higher.
It could be more. Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be more. But people don't think about that, right?
No.
Oh, it's okay. Let that person quit. I'll just hire somebody else. And they don't realize what that's costing their business, on the back end.
Yeah.
So to keep that key in that lock, to keep that light switch flicking on and off for you,
Yep.
there's some decisions that need to be made, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And when money is tight, sometimes decisions are made that maybe shouldn't be made.
Yeah.
But all you're looking at is how do I keep the lights on? How do I keep the doors open? How do I
Yeah.
keep customers coming in? Because once you start saying customers are not coming in, then it just, again, just snowballs down and it's just a matter of time.
Right. Matter of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before you have what this business had that I just found out yesterday. It kind of threw me off a little. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. They're already out of business.
Mm,
Wow. And I hear there's another one just opening. So we'll find out about that one as well. So
yeah.
a lot of changes that are happening, just in the past year, or
Mhm.
should I say just in the past summer, there's a lot of changes where, again, not to knock on businesses because I don't want to pinpoint anybody with a problem, but small businesses really have to really think about their processes and what they're doing before they even open their doors because not easy. You and I both know it.
No, it's not.
We're
And in
still
this
going through
economy, yeah. And in this
it.
economy, who knows?
Yeah,
But the, if you want to say it's an advantage, because the economy is not the greatest, at least again where I am, there are more and more stores vacant. So
yeah,
if you really want to do that, you have to go to, and you like a location, go to the landlord and say, okay, you want 10 grand a month? I'll give you five, but you have to be prepared to walk away.
right.
And
Yeah,
if they really want to, they'll take it rather than leave it empty. But
yeah,
that's one of the things you can do is negotiate because the economy is bad.
yeah, yeah. That's another other thing, and it's wild because I thought about that earlier through the day. It kind of hit me because my daughter had said something to me about capitalism, and it made me really think, about that statement. And I kind of thought about it. I was like, well, she's kind of true because if you think about it, no matter what a business puts the price at it, their product or service, they don't care whether you buy it or not. It's my price. Buy it or not, somebody else will. And we keep buying this stuff. They keep raising it a dollar, and a dollar. And we just keep going. A perfect example, McDonald's. We just keep going. I haven't been to McDonald's in 3 months, 2 months. Last time we talked about it, you know?
Well, I will tell you, I saw a couple of articles recently that said a lot of people are starting to go away from the fast food chains and other things, and they're starting to go to a lot of like the discount stores, like the Dollar Trees and other things, because it's less expensive. And people are just starting to be hurt so badly that they're giving up the expensive meals, the expensive clothes, the expensive cars. They're really starting to ratchet down just to get by.
Yeah. That's never been a truer statement because, in our next part two to this, I'd love to talk about that, with some of the things that we can do to
Hmm.
minimize these effects of how small businesses are affected by, these things that we're talking about in
Hmm.
this episode, because this episode is really about, seeing those things and realizing that there could be a problem, or realizing that you don't think there's a problem. Because if you don't know there's a problem, well, you're going to be just like that business I told you about just a minute ago.
Yeah.
They don't have a key no more because that kid will be turned in because, well, you don't have a business anymore. And it's sad because I hate to see that go. And, as we talk about this podcast, I've been watching my local mall being torn down piece by
Mm,
piece because the malls are dying. So there's a whole
mm.
nother
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And stores that were in that mall are finding their own independent or a shopping center with a smaller location
Mm,
that they're reopening up in. So they're
right.
not in that mall with that high rent. I'm sure the rent was so damn
Hmm.
high. They said, well, we
Yeah.
just can't afford this anymore. They moved out.
Hmm.
Hence the reason why the malls are dying because it's just people aren't going to the malls like they used to.
I
So,
remember I believe I think it was 2012, if I'm not mistaken, when I left corporate right before I opened up my business. One of the things I looked at was a company that sold chocolate, and there was a whole big thing around it. I don't remember the name of it. It was a whole big thing. It was really good stuff. And I remember them saying, you need a location. So I went to the local mall, which is big, well-known, huge mall, packed. And I priced out, when was it? Actually, no, it wasn't. Actually, it was like 2017-ish, 2018. And I priced out a small space in the mall, first level, good location, and they wanted like $12,000 a month, plus utilities, plus insurance, plus, plus, plus. And I reverse engineered and I said, okay, for me to just pay the rent, not anything else, just the rent piece, I had to sell so many pieces of chocolate. Because again, let's just say it costs me $1, I sell it for three, means I'm making $2 per. So at $2 each, I needed to sell 6,000 pieces of chocolate a month just to pay the rent.
hope you can pay
And I
yourself.
said, you know what? It's ridiculous. And like two
Yeah.
years later, COVID hit.
Hmm.
And then the mall was still open, but there was nobody in there. And I would have been paying 12 grand a month minimum, if not more, with zero revenue.
Yeah.
So you really got to think location and, is it better in a mall? Is it better on the outside with a lot of foot traffic and car traffic? And I don't know what
Right.
the answer is, but that's part of finding a location, and you have to have somebody professional to help you do that.
Yeah. Well, next week we hope to have these answers because we're going to have to find out, right? That's what the next episode is going to be about.
Hmm. Right. Right. That's part two is next
Part
week.
two,
Yeah.
man, we got to give some
Hmm.
suggestions, right, on
Yeah.
how we're going to
Yeah.
help.
Right. Right. Yeah. But I'll leave you with one thought that we had kicked around earlier. Um, More so in today's economy. Just because you're getting a paycheck does not mean you have financial security.
Huge, right? Huge.
It's huge.
Yeah,
People,
huge.
the economy, AI, business is struggling. You could be too expensive in your salary.
Yeah.
Even though it's against the law, you could be too old, even though then there's ways to get around that. Um, but there's just a whole bunch of reasons. So while you're still working, and well, let me even before I say that, 150 million people, and this is a statistic that I've seen a couple of times recently. 150 people million adults are looking for a second job.
Yeah. Don't doubt that at all.
And what I say to everybody while you're working, and I know this is hard to say because people are in debt, but while you're working, scale down as much as you can.
Yeah.
Pay off debt, live on less, build an emergency fund. It's not easy, and sometimes you can't because you're already at base minimum. But
Yeah.
where you can, reduce expenses, pay stuff off,
Are you giving
emergency.
away answers to these questions already.
No, this is just no. We'll get into a lot more for next week, but this is just
Oh,
because.
you got a lot more. Okay, this is
I
really
got plenty
cool.
more.
Love it.
But how do you do that?
Yeah.
And
No, I
that's
get it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the
It's
thing.
gotta be
So
tough.
how do you do that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, we could go on and on with this podcast because so much to do. That's why it's got to be a part two. And we always talk about, having a part two, but I think
Yeah,
this one, I want us to stick to it.
yeah.
I want us to do this part two for next week. I think
Mm-hmm.
this has value. I think this is a key one because this can help both of us because,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to tell people I haven't had a chance to pay myself yet with my business. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't.
Yeah.
It's how it is. I'm only two years in, still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if I had a key to a brick and mortar store right now, I would be in trouble myself. So yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid of the truth. So it is what it is. Just keep moving forward. You keep doing the best you can till you
Right.
land those clients that can actually help pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to do it.
Steve, yeah, Steve, what a great episode, man.
Yeah, it
I
was.
think
It was good.
this is great. You know, oh, it's just, I don't know, my brain has got so much I want to talk about, and I
Mm-hmm.
wish we had more time. Hopefully next week we can gather our thoughts together and really continue this thing. So much more to talk about, but man, it's seeing so many businesses fail. I really want to help. That's what I
Right.
do.
Right.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
516-727-2294. Reach out. Steve's got a lot of knowledge. Obviously
Yeah.
this podcast shows it.
Yeah. And Chuck's, with his experience in multiple lines of business, 410-935-6132. Give him a call.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to hit us up, man. Social media, the
Yep.
website, QACteam.com. It's Steve Kent Financial Services. We got some knowledge. We know.
Yeah. We can
You
help
know?
you. We can
Yeah.
help you.
What's this? What I say was this episode 102?
I
Sheesh. I mean,
believe so. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
there, man. So we got
Yeah.
101, now 102 pieces of knowledge that we can help you with. We got so many topics we've covered and discussed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good
And we
stuff.
discussed it. Yeah, and we discussed it on Friday at 4 because
It's 4 o'clock somewhere.
like somewhere. Exactly. And that's why we do what we do, because at any time you can listen to these podcasts and
Mm-hmm.
gain the knowledge, whether it's 1 o'clock in the morning or it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, wherever. We got knowledge. You can share
Yep.
away and listen with us. Yeah.
Yep. Good
Steve,
stuff.
thanks again. Yeah, thanks again for
You
another
got
great
it.
episode. Oh, what a great one. Like I said, my brain is so loaded, man.
All right. Good
I
stuff.
want to go and go and go forever, but time permits. We don't want these things running past a half hour because we don't want people to get bored, right?
All right.
Steve,
Good
have a
episode.
great rest of the day. Have a great
You, everyone.
weekend. We'll
You
talk
too.
soon.
You got
See you
it.
guys. Take care,
Thanks, Chuck.
everybody.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah. See you, buddy.
You've been watching the Friday at 4 podcast series with your host Charles Luttrell and co-host Steve Kent. Thanks for watching.